Today we're going to talk about window light. Alright, welcome back to the channel, guys. This is Dylan Golby here in Seoul again. You might remember a few weeks ago I was sitting on a park bench in Hoi An with a good friend of mine, Etienne, and we were talking about the concept of finding good light. And one of the things that we suggested good light had was direction. And so today I wanted to talk to you about one of my favorite kinds of light, which has a very specific direction, and that is window light. So as you can see, I'm standing next to a window today. Well, you might not be able to see that, but I'll show it to you in a moment. I'm standing next to a window right now, and that light is hitting me from one direction and causing some shadows on the other side. Now, I have a wall quite close to me, so I'm getting a little bit of bounce back, which is filling in those shadows, but you should be able to see that there's a definite direction to the light. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today. All right, so before we get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about how I define window light. And the way that I define it is that it doesn't necessarily have to be light that's actually coming from a window. It could be coming through a doorway or under an awning, or it could just be that there's a huge canopy of trees over the top and you're working in open shade where the light's only able to come in from one direction. And that's what I'm going to define as window light for the purposes of this video. Now you can recreate this using a softbox and a flash if you want to recreate this light where it doesn't exist. But today we're going to be talking about using natural light as the source. So sunlight coming through a window. Now you might have heard the terms north window used a lot when people are talking about building a studio for natural light usage. And it was quite common back in the early days of photography, and even now people, if they're going to be using natural light in a studio, typically build a north-facing window. And the reason for that is you basically get this indirect light coming through all day long. And so what we're talking about here, when we're talking about window light or anything like this, is we're talking about indirect light as well. So this is light that's bouncing around outside or outside of the area that you're working in and then coming in from one direction. And that is the key to this window light. The idea of this is to have a large, soft source that can be used in a lot of different ways, but is generally quite flattering. So just like any other light source, the size of this light source, the window or the door, matters. The larger it is, the softer that light, the softer the transition between highlight and shadow is going to be, and the smaller it is, the harsher that transition is going to be. So you can play with larger or smaller windows to give the same effect as a larger or smaller softbox and create different types of light on your subject. So to give you an idea, the window to my side here is about 2 by 2 meters. So that's quite a large source, and it's a cloudy day outside, so we're getting a very soft light filtering through. So of course there's a few different ways you can use this light, and I'll run you through a couple of the ways that I like to do that now. The first one, of course, is just like this. This can make a really flattering portrait. You'll find this, going into coffee shops or something like that. There's always these nice windows with this beautiful light coming through, and it can be a really flattering place to make a portrait. So that's definitely one way to use this light. Now, if it's coming from one side, of course, you're going to get shadows on this side. And if you look at when I turn my face here, if I turn towards the window, I get a full light right in my face. If I turn back towards you, I get half of my face lit and a little bit over here because the window continues further down this way. Now if I turn away, I'm getting completely lit on this side, but not here. So you can make use of that, even with the same window, by just turning your subject. You might even want to photograph them from the direction of the window and have the light hit them directly in the face. So I'll give you an example of that now. I was out making a portrait for a magazine here in Seoul, and my subject was sitting very, very close to a huge bank of windows. And so when I had him look in the direction of the camera, half of his face was lit and half was left in shadow. But when I had him look out the window, you can see that it's a very encompassing light, and you get to really see all of his face at that point. So in this example, what you can see is two gentlemen sitting under an awning. And as you can see, they're in the shade, but all of the light is coming from the direction of the camera. And that allows us to reveal a lot of the small details in there and really give the colors a good saturation. If I had stepped under the awning with them and taken the photo from the side, what you would have seen is more like what you're seeing on me right now, where the light is coming in from one direction and causing shadows on the other side. Of course, these two gents are sitting next to quite a dark wall, so what you will see is a really deep shadow on one side of the face. Okay, now that we've gone through that, I want to show you my favorite way to use this light. So here we are at the other end of the window. When we started, I had all of the window in front of my face, so I was getting all of the light coming in this direction. Now I'm at the other end of the window, so all of the window is actually behind me. I'm at the very far end of it. So as you can see, things have got a little bit more harsh. I've got a hot spot on my nose most likely, and this side of my face is lit, but this side isn't. However, there is one way that I really love to use this particular portion of the light, and that is to have someone look towards it like this. Now as you can see, I've lit this part of my face, kept all of this in shadow, and we get a very, very dramatic look. So here's an example of that on the screen right now. I was interviewing a man and his wife just outside of Mindat in Myanmar, and he began to smoke his pipe, as they typically do in that part of the country. And the smoke was rising up, and I just thought, right, that light right there is absolutely beautiful. And he was coming in from the window right next to him, and of course we have quite a dark background behind, so once I exposed for those highlights, all I was able to see was him, the smoke, and absolutely nothing else. And so that's the key to all of this sort of exposure, is to expose for the highlights. So regardless of where the light is coming from, where it's hitting, you don't want to blow anything out. If you expose for those highlights and don't let them go to pure white, the shadows will fall where they will, and you'll get a really dramatic looking picture. Alright guys, so I hope that's been an enjoyable episode. I hope that you've learned something from this. If you have any questions, as per usual, throw them down below. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, hit that little bell icon to make sure you get notifications of the new videos every Wednesday. Thanks again for watching, guys.